What if we got a Sonic the Hedgehog movie in the mid-90s featuring a teenage boy who mutates into Sonic after being infected with dormant hedgehog DNA, like Peter Parker getting bitten by a radioactive spider? Well, we almost did, before that idea was scrapped in favor of Sonic jumping out of the game into the real world through the help of an artificial intelligence. To find out why that movie was scrapped and how we came very close to getting this abomination, let's dive in and take a look at what could have been Sonic the movie. In the early 90s, Sega of America was fighting for relevance in a market dominated by Nintendo. With less than 5% US market share, Sega needed a bold strategy and a new mascot who could rival Mario. That mascot became Sonic the Hedgehog, initially designed in Japan with a more aggressive look, complete with sharp fangs. He was also in a rock band and had a human love interest named Madonna, modeled after Princess Peach. However, Sega of America pushed for a redesign that would resonate more broadly with Western audiences. They stripped away the band and the overused Rescue the Girl storyline, refocusing the character as a rebellious but ultimately heroic figure. Instead of chasing after a love interest, Sonic's story would now center on his battle against the villainous Dr. Robotnik, creating a more original and action-driven narrative that stood apart from the competition. Not only that, but compared to Mario, Sonic was hip, cool, and fast, delivering a sense of speed and attitude that felt new and exciting for players as he became the centerpiece of an aggressive brand-building campaign designed to take on Nintendo directly. Sega CEO Tom Kalinske, drawing on his experience at Mattel, where the launch of He-Man and the Masters of the Universe cartoon series fueled the success of the toy line, immediately began planning a Sonic animated series to support the games. What followed was a pioneering move. Sega launched two separate Sonic shows at the same time, one syndicated weekday cartoon for the after-school audience, and a darker, serialized Saturday morning version on ABC. This dual release strategy was unprecedented and massively expanded Sonic's cultural footprint. To lead Sega's push into entertainment and licensing, Kalinske brought in Micheline Risley, a former executive for Marvel's animation division. Risley was tasked with turning Sonic into a full-blown multimedia brand. Apart from overseeing the two animated series, she quickly built a licensing division from the ground up and formed strategic partnerships with major players in Hollywood. At the time, Sega had little experience with consumer licensing, but Risley developed the infrastructure and processes that would help the company claw its way to the top of the US console market in the early 90s, even surpassing Nintendo at one point. By 1993, with Sonic firmly established as a pop culture icon, Risley began developing an even more ambitious project, a feature film. At a time when Hollywood was just beginning to experiment with video game adaptations, Sega signed a development deal with MGM and Trilogy Entertainment to create a live-action Sonic the Hedgehog movie. However, Kalinske worried that a bad movie could seriously damage the Sonic brand. The 1987 Masters of the Universe movie had done little to revive the struggling He-Man toy line, and Super Mario Bros. Was already shaping up to be a cautionary tale. A scathing Los Angeles Times report revealed on-set chaos, with cast members openly criticizing the production, fueling negative press ahead of its box office failure and critical panning. Around the same time, Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat were getting mediocre film adaptations of their own, further proving that even well-known video game franchises could stumble in Hollywood. Risley, on the other hand, pushed back, feeling the key was to make a good movie that stayed true to the source material. The first attempt would actually fall well short of this, resembling something closer to The Island of Dr. Moreau than a family-friendly adventure. It was written and produced by Penn Densham and Richard B. Lewis, the writer and producer respectively of Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. The film opens on an uninhabited tropical island as a terrified man flees through the jungle from mutant creatures, before they eventually catch up with him and devour him. Back in the US, we meet 17-year-old Jimmy Hedgeman, a rebellious teen who constantly has run-ins with the law. Jimmy's father, Dr. Hedgeman, is a reclusive, government-funded geneticist studying DNA regeneration. The two don't get along. Jimmy resents his father's constant criticisms and high expectations, while Dr. Hedgeman sees his son as a reckless troublemaker with no direction. While Jimmy is reluctantly tagging along at his father's lab after being picked up from the police station, a group of mysterious men break in and abduct Dr. Hedgeman. During the attack, Jimmy is injured by a shattered vial containing dormant hedgehog DNA, and the serum seeps into his bloodstream, triggering strange effects like superhuman speed, heightened reflexes, and blue fur that emerges whenever his adrenaline spikes. Jimmy's quest to rescue his father takes him to a remote island populated by mutant creatures, twisted fusions of animals and humans, ruled by the man behind his father's abduction, Dr. Paul Ellison. A disgraced biotech genius once thought dead, Ellison now operates from a volcano-powered fortress, where he seeks to rewrite life itself. He believes humanity is flawed and aims to use a DNA-based aerosol launched via volcanic eruption to correct it, mutating the entire planet into obedient, engineered hybrids. but he needs Dr. Hedgman to perfect the process, and Jimmy's unique mutation to make it stable. After arriving on the island, Jimmy is captured by a tribe of hybrid creatures, who misinterpret the phrase Sonic or Bust on the back of his jacket, believing Sonic is his name, and possibly a prophetic figure. Taken in by the village, he begins training with Amanda, a courageous teenage girl, and Kentar, a towering early experiment of Ellison's nicknamed Knuckles. With their help, Jimmy learns to control his powers and shift between his human and mutant forms, as Jimmy and the mutants storm Ellison's fortress, rescue the prisoners, and try to stop Ellison from launching his DNA payload. But Ellison injects himself with his own serum, becoming a towering mutant monster. In a last-ditch effort, Sonic channels all the speed into a devastating spin attack, collapsing the facility and triggering a volcanic eruption that destroys Ellison and his experiment. Jimmy, Amanda, Dr. Hedgman, and the remaining villagers escape as the island burns behind them. As they escape, Jimmy jokes, "You thought raising a normal teenager was hard? You ain't seen nothing yet." Not surprisingly, this version of the film was met with negative feedback from Sega and MGM, both due to its dark tone and extremely loose connection to the source material. As a result, Sega turned to a different writer to start over from scratch, Richard Jeffries, who would later do uncredited work on Fantastic Four: Rise of the Silver Surfer and Tron Legacy. Titled Sonic the Hedgehog: Wonders of the World, the film would have followed 12-year-old Josh Pinsky, who lives with his eccentric father Hal, an unemployed computer scientist obsessed with building an XRI, a powerful artificial intelligence capable of projecting virtual reality. One night, while Hal is out, Josh asks the XRI to write a school paper for him on Sonic. However, the XRI doesn't know what Sonic is, so Josh hooks up his Sega Saturn to it to explain. To his shock, Sonic steps out of the game world into the real world. As Josh and Sonic bond, trouble quickly follows. Removed from the game world, Sonic begins to lose his powers and causes chaos in the real world. Things worsen when Dr. Robotnik and his minions also escape the game, launching a plan to take over the real world using Chaos Emeralds, encased in ordinary rocks, to fuel his sinister plans. Robotnik reopens a decrepit theme park as Botnik Land and lets children in for free, who he then puts to work mining his Chaos Emeralds. As Robotnik schemes to steal Earth's natural wonders and recreate them in virtual reality, with plans to charge big money for the world to see them, Josh and Sonic go on a mission to stop him. In the climactic showdown, Josh, Sonic, and Robotnik are pulled into the game world. With renewed strength, Sonic defeats Robotnik, who vows to return. Sonic then chooses to stay behind to protect his world, while Josh returns home. As he sits down to finally finish his school paper, Josh notices Sonic wink at him from the TV screen, hinting the adventure may not be over. This version of the movie was received very positively by Sega of America. Plus, the movie also included Sega's upcoming new system, the Saturn, as well as the first planned Sonic game for the system, Sonic X-treme, with Sega planning to launch all three at once, using the movie to promote the new system and game, similar to how the Wizard promoted Super Mario Bros. 3. So why didn't the film happen? While Sega of America and writer Richard Jeffries attempted to craft a compelling big screen story for Sonic, aligning that vision with the original Japanese game developers' expectations proved difficult, as the two sides struggled to find common ground. Additionally, all sides were very nervous about whether mid-90s visual effects could convincingly bring Sonic to life. Complicating matters was the fact that Sega and Sonic's popularity was beginning to wane, with Jeffries' pitch arriving at the same time as Sega's botched launch of the Saturn, which would debut without a flagship Sonic title to anchor the system, as Sonic X-treme was in development hell and would ultimately be cancelled, resulting in the company losing its momentum. Finally, the movie fell victim to each side, MGM and Sega, wanting the lion's share of control and profits. It was a dynamic echoed years later with Microsoft's failed Halo movie, which also collapsed when the studio balked at Microsoft's demands for a larger cut than Hollywood was willing to give. After the MGM deal fell apart, the Sonic script was shopped to DreamWorks, but the same issue over profits prevented the film from moving forward. When a Sonic the Hedgehog movie finally moved forward in 2018, it didn't get off to the smoothest start. The first trailer sparked immediate backlash from fans, who were unsettled by Sonic's bizarre, hyper-realistic design. One of the biggest challenges behind the scenes was figuring out how to adapt Sonic's iconic look, particularly his eyes, which in the games often appears as one large connected shape. The filmmakers worried that a faithful translation wouldn't work in live action, and moved forward by redesigning him with two eyes, even though Sega reportedly had reservations. In a rare move for a major studio film, after the internet revolted, the studio and the filmmakers listened. Sonic was completely redesigned to better match his classic appearance, with veteran Sonic artist Tyson Hess brought in to lead the effort. The overhaul delayed the movie by several months and added an estimated $5 million to the budget, but the gamble paid off. Sonic the Hedgehog went on to become a box office success, launching what is now a full-fledged film franchise. But looking back, it's interesting to wonder what might have happened if Sega's first movie attempt had succeeded in the 90s. Would Sonic have become a box office star even sooner, perhaps even even saving the launch of the Saturn, or would the movie have crashed and burned like so many other video game adaptations of the era? Thanks for watching, everybody, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more of Hollywood's untold stories and unmade movies.